Well, hello there. Hello and happy Sunday and Merry Christmas. Today is Sunday, December 20th, 2020. December 20th, 2020. 12/20/2020.
2020, 24 hours to go. I want to be sedated.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I do. And this is 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir. I'm here with the beautiful and decorated Amy Nasir.
Well decorated with my beautiful
and you.
cookies.
Yes, loving the gingerbread there.
And I earrings courtesy of Emily Drake.
That's right. Wardrobe courtesy of Emily Drake. And, these are practical effects. My daughter would be quick to point out, because she knows more about these things than I do, this is not CGI. No, these are practical effects. I don't know, practical effects sounds like practical jokes. But thank you for joining us. Today is the 355th day of 2020, with just 11 days remaining. I can see 2021 right over there.
Hi there.
Right over the horizon, or maybe a few sunsets and sunrises. 11 days remaining in the year, 5 days until Christmas.
Yay! 5 days till Christmas.
Yes, 315 days until Halloween, but 5 days until Christmas, making this our last chance to wish you a Merry Christmas, and that is just what we are going to do.
That's right, and a Happy New Year, I think, right? Or no, wait, that's...
We will have a
week
chance
after.
to do our year-end wrap-up before New Year.
All right.
That will happen next week.
That sounds great.
But today we wish you a Merry Christmas, and if you are on the chat, and we know you are, please chime in. Let us know that you're out there. This is going to be fun. On this date, Elvis Presley was drafted.
Wow.
Now, what's that got to do with Christmas? Well, Elvis Presley was drafted on December 20th, 1957, while spending the Christmas holidays at Graceland, his newly purchased Tennessee mansion. Rock and roll star Elvis Presley receives his draft notice for the U.S. Army. With a suggestive style, one writer called him Elvis the Pelvis, a hit movie, Love Me Tender, and a string of gold records, including Heartbreak Hotel, Blue Suede Shoes, Hound Dog, and Don't Be Cruel. Presley had become a national icon and the world's first bona fide rock and roll star. Mm-hmm. It's kind of hard to think back. There weren't rock and roll stars until Elvis Presley. By the end of 1956, as the Beatles' John Lennon once famously remarked, before Elvis, there was nothing. The following year, at the peak of his career, Presley received his draft notice for a 2-year stint with the Army.
Oh, wow. You mean, wait a minute. You mean the government forced him to join the Army? In a way that they used physical force and kind of threatened him with jail time, perhaps, or fines if he didn't join?
It's hard to imagine.
Is this right?
This is a thing that used to happen. Fans sent tens of thousands of letters to the Army asking for him to be spared, but Elvis would have none of it. He received one deferment, during which he finished working on the movie King Creole, before being sworn in as an Army private in Memphis on March 24th, 1958. After basic training, which included an emergency leave to see his beloved mother Gladys before she passed away in August of '58, Presley sailed for Europe on the USS General Randall. For the next 18 months, he served in Company D, 32nd Tank Battalion, 3rd Armor Division in Friedberg, Germany, where he attained the rank of sergeant. Yes, he was Sergeant Elvis Presley. For the rest of his service, he shared an off-base residence with his father, grandmother, and some Memphis friends. After working during the day, Presley would return home at night to host frequent parties and impromptu jam sessions. At one of these, an Army buddy introduced him to 14-year-old Priscilla Beaulieu, whom Elvis would later marry, several years later, when she was not 14 anymore. Meanwhile, Presley's manager, Colonel Tom Parker, continued to release singles recorded before his departure, keeping the money rolling in and his most famous client fresh in the public mind. Widely praised for not seeking to avoid the draft or serve domestically, Presley was seen as a model for all young Americans. So what's that got to do with Christmas? Well, not only was he drafted while he was on his Christmas break at his mansion, the best-selling Christmas album of all time.
What is it?
The Elvis Presley Christmas album.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yes.
I know there's Blue Christmas.
He'll have a Blue Christmas Without You, and that was on the
there.
album.
Nice.
But there was a whole album of Christmas music released in 1957. 10 million copies of this album have been sold.
Wow.
In fact, Blue Christmas was released as a single 7 years later and became a top 10 hit on its re-release as well. And of course, we all know and love, I'm sure you all love, to hear Blue Christmas every year. So, Merry Christmas, Sergeant Presley.
Excellent. Real quick, I just want to give a shout out to Jennifer. And Kayla's here.
Hooray.
Carrie and Richard are here with us. And Mike.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes. Wonderfulness.
It's a glow reunion.
Lisa and Narendra. And, wow. All these. Oh, and John.
John is on YouTube. Excellent.
Yeah, John the
We're always
corrector.
trying to get our YouTube up, and it's great to see John online.
Yes.
John has been raking me over the coals.
Yeah, he's the corrector.
Well, not just that. He gave me a devil's advocate, a philosophic challenge.
Ooh. Philosophical throwdown.
Yes, to answer altruism in the context of the medical industry.
Oh, wow.
The healthcare industry.
Okay.
And John's very good at keeping me on my toes. I don't always answer his objections because some of them would take a full paper essay, and I need to find time for more of that. And so it is also, by the way, it is Caroling Day. Of course, every day is Caroling Day before Christmas, but it is National Go Carol Day. So if you have been waiting for the right day to go out and sing some Christmas carols, now is the time.
Is that supposed to be the 24th? Or maybe the 25th even?
Well, obviously you're going to sing Christmas carols on the holiday as well. But as a national holiday, today is Caroling Day.
Yes. Kayla says that Mark is also listening. So, hey there, Mark.
Oh, wonderful.
Awesome sauce.
Yes, well, Mark and Kayla were at Greenfield Village with us last night.
Oh, so
Pictures
good.
are online. Actually,
Yes.
I think they're only on Kayla's wall. I'll post some. People need to see that. It was quite a night.
It was
And,
filled with joyous merriment.
Well,
And
as we
reveling.
mentioned last time, we've been on a Save Santa crusade.
Yes.
Amy initially intended to start her own charity to save all the unemployed Santas, but we've been seeing Santa working all
Yes.
over town.
Yes, but I did actually put in a note to a Santa school in I think Milford, Michigan. I think that's where it's located. I forget what the name of it is, but it's a Santa school. And
Milford
so
would be the right place, just
Yes.
right by Holly, Michigan.
Yes, so I reached out to them, so I'm waiting to hear back from them.
What we can
So-
do to help the down and out Santas?
Yes.
Well, the Santas we saw were not down and out. Santa was riding around. If you don't know, Greenfield Village is a historical museum in Dearborn, Michigan, and it's based on, it's Henry Ford's museum. He built it, he created it. And so Santa was not only on the rooftop shouting out, meeting all the children. He knew their names magically somehow, even though the only people who heard their names were his helpers, like down on the ground. But somehow Santa knew all the little boys and girls, and even some of us adults' names. But he was also riding around at the end of the night, riding around the village in a Model T, not a replica of a Model T, but an
real
actual
one.
Model T
Yes.
from the 1920s. And that's good. I kind of had to keep out of his way, though, because my resolution this year was to be really naughty to save Santa the trip.
So you didn't like fling yourself in front of the car to be hit?
I swear I looked for Christmas jokes and I couldn't find any.
Oh.
So if anybody's got a good Christmas joke, share it on the chat there, because I couldn't. The only other one, of course, is a classic, which is the reason Santa's so jolly. It's because he knows where all the bad girls live. So share your Christmas jokes online. It was fun because at Greenfield Village, one of the acoustic guitar singer, player, caroler guys played Snoopy's Christmas.
Yes.
Snoopy's Christmas, if you don't already know it, is a novelty song about Snoopy, and from the comics, he would imagine himself as a World War I flying ace. And the song is about Snoopy meeting the Red Baron. I remember as a kid, I thought it was a very silly song because there's World War I, in some ways more gruesome than World War II. One of the worst wars ever.
Yeah.
And you've got this song that's kind of targeted at everybody, but especially at children. Snoopy meets the Red Baron. They have this fight, this airplane fight. Or were they on the ground in the trenches? Anyway, they're having this fight. Snoopy thinks it's all over. He's going to be defeated when the Red Baron says, "Merry Christmas, mein Freund."
Oh.
And the final verse is they get together and they have a drink because it's Christmas and it's time to set all that aside. As a kid, I thought that was really kind of, I mean it was heartwarming, because it's kid's song, but I thought it was actually kind of cheesy. But what I didn't know as a kid and only learned later was there was actually a Christmas truce in 1914.
Mm-hmm.
Starting on Christmas Eve, many German and British troops fighting in World War I sang Christmas. That was not on Christmas Eve, actually. That was on the, I've got it in my notes here, a few days before Christmas. The first light, Christmas Day, some German soldiers emerged from their trenches, approached the Allied lines across the no man's land, calling out Merry Christmas in their enemy's native tongue. And at first, the Allied soldiers feared it was a trick, but seeing the Germans unarmed, they climbed out of their trenches. This is World War I. This is German soldiers. This is English soldiers, Allied soldiers. The Allied soldiers feared it was a trick, but seeing the Germans unarmed, they climbed out of their trenches, shook hands with the enemy soldiers.
Wow.
The men exchanged presents of cigarettes and plum puddings and sang carols and songs. Some Germans lit Christmas trees around the trenches. And there was even a documented case of soldiers from opposing sides playing a good-natured game of soccer.
Oh, that's so nice.
German Lieutenant Kurt Kamisch recalled how marvelously wonderful, yet how strange it was. Now, the English officers felt the same way about it. Thus, Christmas, the celebration of love, managed to bring mortal enemies together as friends for a time. I still can't quite get it.
Well, this time of year, Christmas and New Year's, is customarily, in a lot of ways, a time for reconciliation and meeting up with old friends, checking in with people that you haven't talked to in a while, but specifically about reconciliation. At least that's how it played out in A Christmas Carol, where Fred, his sister's son, came by, and every year he offers his Uncle Ebenezer to come over and spend time with them.
He is relentless in his graciousness.
He is.
And so Amy and I have been talking about that, about reconciliation, and also when you let people go, how to do that graciously. The Chinese refer to it as, all of us do, but they make it a big deal, saving face.
Right.
Or giving your opponent an easy out.
Or giving them the opportunity to still have dignity in the conversation or the conflict.
Yes. Remember, I mentioned the Robert Heinlein quote, "Your enemy is never a villain in his own eyes." Keep this in mind. It may offer a way to make him your friend. And if not, you can kill him without hate. You laugh, but
I know.
But that wisdom of killing without hate,
Yeah.
that makes you a more effective soldier, if that's what it comes down to.
That's true.
And to be able to be dispassionate in executing the things which you are rightly angry about is the other side of this coin. So we've been talking about that, and it goes back to our episode on graciousness and also our episode on allies, because remember, you should treat your allies better than you treat your opposition. And, we've had falling outs with friends and associates, and it took time for us to learn that lesson. And not just that you should be dignified and gracious and leave the door open because it's easier, it goes better, you might be wrong, but also because it appeals to the dignity within yourself.
Right.
And that includes the dignity of having been friends or associates with that person. You know,
Sure.
when I've lost friends, I have to remind myself I was not an idiot when I was good friends with those people.
Right.
And they didn't change that much. What I have to realize is, no, our relationship changed. My knowledge changed. I realized that we weren't the right people to be friends. Or whatever it was that changed. I think of relationships. Think of romantic relationships. People come away from them with the sense that their romantic partner is now the worst person in the world. People who can't remain friends with past romantic partners.
Yeah.
Well, then what on earth were you friendly or romantic with while you were together? Were you that wrong about who they were and what they were?
Yeah.
Or did they change that much? I understand a betrayal can be a reason to break up. But the idea that you completely change your opinion with somebody because of a breakup, were you that stupid all along?
Aw.
Were they that evil all along? Did
Right,
reality suddenly change the day you found out the thing that made you break up?
Yeah.
Now, maybe it did.
Yeah.
Maybe it did. Maybe they were so dishonest or such a second-handed, what's the word I'm looking for, faker.
A liar,
Well,
compulsive,
but
psychopath.
putting on an act.
Psychopath.
No. But you get the idea.
Something like that.
So anyway.
Yeah, so I have
we've
that.
been talking
yeah,
about
we've been talking
that.
about. I have in my notes here. I put, regardless of the level of distrust or hurt in the relationship, if you're considering reconciling with somebody here during this wonderful Christmas time or New Year's, write out a list of why you liked the person.
Oh, I love that. I love a good list.
And what you got out of your relationship with them in the past. And, you might be cringing while you're doing it, but it's a good exercise if you are considering it. And, of course, there are people or relationships that are beyond repair.
Sure.
Of course, if you can't make that list, you can't get yourself to do it, then, maybe you should certainly listen to that. But it's just important to be honest with yourself and to say, yeah, there is, like your point, there was a time that you were actually inspired or by that person or you admired them in some way. Of course, there are deal breakers like lying, stealing, and murder. But other than that, if you are considering doing something like that with somebody, and we talked about this before. We've talked about I statements. We've talked about being very honest with your feelings. You know what? If anybody needs a good role model for this in TV land out there, I really love some episodes of Murder, She Wrote with Angela Lansbury.
Oh, yeah, we've mentioned that before.
Oh, dear. The way she handles herself in conflicts is so
graciousness
amazing.
during conflict.
Oh, so good. And I want to be her.
Rush was right to name an entire record album, Grace Under Pressure. Again, as we said last week, it's when things are at their worst that you've got to be at your best.
Yeah, exactly. And I put in my notes also about Christmas time. It's a good time to do this because at least for me, and hopefully for many people out there, you feel good about yourself. You feel loved. You feel, hopefully you feel loved and you feel visible and you feel lovable and you tend to have much more goodwill because you're really focused on that during Christmas. And because of that, you can then, be maybe perhaps a little bit more hopeful in reconciling with somebody. And like I said, it's a theme in A Christmas Carol, a theme that I really do appreciate there.
So, if Snoopy's Christmas or the story of the Christmas Truce is as confusing to you as it is to me, I did read a fun short story this week by Quent Cordair called April's Justice. If you're thinking the Christmas Truce lacked just behavior, April's Justice is a quick read. It's on his website. He posted it a week or so ago and made that available to folks. And there's a link to it in the show notes. You might take a look at that. Also in the show notes is my favorite Christmas album, because I'm now going into what are we listening to this week. I've been listening to 1940s Christmas, and Amy's been playing a lot of the old style Christmas, not carols, but songs. These are songs. These are great songs.
These are songs from the 40s, and one of my favorites is, you need to look this up, it's called Hello, Mr. Kringle.
Hello, Mr. Kringle.
Ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling.
Yes. Cute stuff.
It's ridiculously adorable, and it's and also another one is there's some versions of it, different versions of it by different bands, but it's called Santa Claus Came in the Spring.
Santa Claus Came in the Spring.
Yes.
Very sweet. So obviously, in the category of what are we listening to, we're listening to a lot of Christmas music.
Yes.
But also, Yaron Brook talked about reasons for optimism last week. So there's a link to that in the show notes. Yaron's talked about optimism before, but it's been a while, and he's acknowledged he's become more pessimistic over the past year or two, or maybe the last 4 years. What's been happening for the last 4 years? In any event, it's good to hear Yaron talking about optimism. He should be doing that because everything that he said last Saturday was true, and you should give that a listen. That's also on my What Have We Been Listening To list. What I do need to do, though, is give a listen to the best-selling Christmas album of all time, Elvis Presley's Christmas. You know, we talked about goodwill, so we kind of started the Christmas holiday with our November 29th episode 39, and a link to that is in the show notes as well. But now we're into Christmas proper, and hopefully you're not suffering from Christmas fatigue, which I talked to my daughter about. That is a thing. I do feel like we've had a lot of Christmases already. We've now seen Santa Claus
5 times.
5 times? I thought it was 4. Well, the same Santa twice.
Yes.
So we've seen 4. We've had 4 instances of seeing Santa Claus 5 times, and Santa is in good spirits this year. He's well behaved. He's a rational man. You know, he gives to the good kids, and he'll let you know if you're on his naughty list. And, you know, sorry, try again next year. Although, you know, somebody like Alex Epstein might be happy to receive coal because fossil fuels. So that could be a good thing, too. I'm just looking through your comments here because there are a lot of good ones.
Yes,
and,
I'm
Amy,
trying to...
you can help me with that, too. Oh, you're answering comments.
I'm answering comments,
okay,
as a matter
well,
of fact.
I'll let you do that then while I keep the ball rolling here. One thing I did want to do, since we're talking about Christmas, and since our audience is over 50% objectivists, Ayn Rand fans, I have to read Ayn Rand's observation from the Objectivist Calendar of 1976, because she wrote, "The secular meaning of the Christmas holiday is wider than the tenets of any particular religion. It is goodwill toward men."
Yes.
See, that's why I couldn't resist doing a goodwill episode. Going back to the quote, "A frame of mind which is not the exclusive property, though it is supposed to be part, but is a largely unobserved part, of the Christian religion. The charming aspect of Christmas is the fact that it expresses goodwill in a cheerful, happy, benevolent, non-sacrificial way. One says, 'Merry Christmas,' not 'weep and repent.'
Weep and repent.
And the goodwill is expressed in a material, earthly form by giving presents to one's friends or by sending them cards in token of remembrance. The best aspect of Christmas is the aspect usually decried by the mystics, the fact that Christmas has been commercialized. The gift buying stimulates an enormous outpouring of ingenuity in the creation of products devoted to a single purpose, to give men pleasure. And the street decorations put up by department stores and other institutions, the Christmas trees, the winking lights, the glittering colors, provide the city with a spectacular display which only commercial greed could afford to give us. One would have to be terribly depressed to resist the wonderful gaiety of that spectacle." Love that. Leonard Peikoff did a longer version of why Christmas should be more commercial, and there is a link to that in the show notes. It's worth reading. And one more, the Ayn Rand Institute has put up a page of how Ayn Rand or how the Rand family, I forget, how Ayn Rand and Frank O'Connor
Yes.
celebrated Christmas. That is worth seeing.
They celebrated.
The writing is good.
They celebrated in the most cutest and most adorable way possible.
But yes, for the pictures of their cards and other artifacts is definitely worth seeing. So the link to that will be in the show notes as well. An absolute must see.
Yes.
Now I have to take a moment and look at our comments here.
Okay.
And folks are also sharing their favorite Christmas carols because we have Up on a Rooftop here.
Yes.
And,
well, that's
love that. What else have you got? What are your favorites here?
Yep. Well, we've got Jennifer says, "What? It wasn't the Partridge Family Christmas, LOL, as the best Christmas album."
Hey, what are you picking on the Partridge Family there?
I think there was a meme going around with Danny Bonnie Ducci
In a pear tree.
and in a pear tree. I was just trying to find it to post it, but if anybody has that meme at the ready, please go ahead and post.
Yes. Narendra acknowledges, yes, reconciliation is possible. In many cases, it was possible. It's not always. Not always, but yes, yes, yes. Yes. Love that.
Oh,
I've got to go to
Kayla
YouTube.
says,
We have a lot
Kayla
of
says,
notes on
anyone...
YouTube. Yes.
Kayla says, anyone else love Dominic and the Donkey?
Dominic the Donkey.
Yeah.
Was Dominic the Donkey a Pearls Before Swine?
I'm not entirely
comic?
sure.
That sounds familiar,
don't
but I
remember
may
it.
be wrong. Dominic the Donkey. Well, we'll have to look that up. Oh my gosh, the notes on YouTube are
Extensive.
but complicated. And
Yes, they are a little hard to pick out and talk about. So brevity is the spice of life.
yeah. Well, a lot of these are from Jay, and he is a poet, so
Yes.
he says things in a manner that is a challenge.
But that's okay.
Yes.
We'll take a look. Thank you.
Well, it's I know some really high IQ people that don't have a downshift.
Mm.
Yes, and
Yeah. You need to dumb it down for us.
well, ironically, he says a knowing stupidity exists to find the key that opens the door to being stupid no more.
Mm.
I mean, it's what did we say last time when we talked about aphorisms? It's terse. Terse isn't the right word. There's a poetic word economy there. But for people of my intelligence, it takes a moment to break it down.
Break it down. Yo, Kayla posts the Dominic the Donkey video for anybody who wants to take a look at that after our show.
Oh.
Or you could play it now while you're listening to us, I'm sure.
Oh,
Yes.
Well, we're not going to go that late because we are doing Christmas ourselves. We still got more preparations to do. We may do a Zoom social event by then. If so, we will announce it and get everybody involved because
Yes,
we do need
a New Year's Eve party on
we
Zoom.
missed the Great Lakes Objectivists, the Glow Christmas
Yes.
party.
I miss all the cooking I do. All the delicious, delicious cooking.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, I didn't want to jump too far ahead before you had a chance. Did you want to tell us the origin of the 12 Days of Christmas?
Sure.
Because
So-
I know that was something you made notes on.
I wanted to just kind of go back and
Yes.
recap about early Christianity and why Christmas is December 25th for those people who didn't catch it before, if I did say anything about it. So basically the early Christians way back when in the 100, 200, 300 AD or BCE, basically they were more concerned about remembering how Jesus died. And in that way, it was sort of like a rebirth of Jesus in the way of that now he has gone back to heaven, he's gone back to God, which is himself, and now he's in a better place. But they're looking for him to come back. That's really what they're really.
336.
Yeah, so I'll get to that in a moment. I'm up here.
Oh, okay.
So you might be wondering, well, so they were just concerned about how he died and all that. So when did they start depicting or worshiping or paying attention to the Virgin Mary? Because that's I'm not a historian myself. I know that there are people out there who are better positioned to answer this, but the Virgin Mary was not a part of Christianity early on. There were a few references to the Nativity in the Bible, in the New Testament, I should say. But other than that, she was. So back in, I think it was around 300-ish, they decided at the Council of Ephesus, they designated Mary as the Theotokos, which means the God bearer, so that she actually gave birth to Jesus Christ. And so again, that whole nativity idea of Jesus' birthday and everything like that really didn't come around until 336. The year 336 was the earliest recorded celebration of Christmas in Rome. In 379, Pope Liberius made the 25th of December the official date of Christmas. And this was controversial. A lot of people in Christianity did not want this to happen. and I really think that it had a lot to do with they didn't want to see Jesus as an actual baby or person or human being as flesh and blood. They thought, he is a deity. They wanted to be more Platonic about it and keep him more abstract and more, the vengeful God that's out of your reach and not part of your world. And of course, at that time also, you had Mithra, which was a basically an ancient deity who was known to be the sun god. A lot of Roman militia people worshipped him, and and that's where they came up with the Sol Invictus, which was basically the worship of the unconquered sun, which was December 25th. And of course, you had Saturnalia going around that time earlier on in the Roman period. But yeah, that was by the 4th century that Sol Invictus was given, and then they just wanted to steer clear of this whole idea of the sun god, and so yeah, they kind of the Christians kept changing their theology to kind of take over the pagan elements and say these are ours, not anyone else's. This is Christianity and not anything else. So now we get into the Middle Ages. Sorry if I'm going over too much, but the 12 days of Christmas. There were actually 12 days of Christmas in the Middle Ages, and basically in England and in other areas too, but it started on Christmas Day on the 25th, and it lasted until the 12th night, which was January 5th. And then you have Epiphany, which is on the 6th. Anyway, that's another story. But in England, during those times, you had things like the Lord of Misrule, and you had social inversion, and men would dress up as women, and women would dress up as men, and your servants would order around the lords and ladies during this time, and everybody would feast and just have such a great time of it. So that was what that was. In terms of the carol, it wasn't published until 1780, and the music was established in 1909. So before that, it was generally used as a memory and recitation game called forfeits. You can look all of this up. I have more information than you need to know here, but basically you recited the 12 days of Christmas lines. If you messed up, then you had to forfeit an item, and you could only get it back if you said it correctly. So if and forfeits wasn't just the 12 days of Christmas, it was other things like standing on your head, or barking like a dog, or rubbing up against somebody like a cat, or doing charade-like things in order to get what you forfeited back. So if you forfeited your hat, for instance, you wouldn't be able to leave the party until you did it correctly. And there was a judge set up for that as well. So that's an interesting party game we should do for Glow next year. Yes. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about New Year's. How are we on time? Okay, I've got a minute. New Year's started as Roman Roman day of gift giving called the Kalends, Kalends. So that just basically means the first day of any month in the Roman calendar. But this is the Kalends of January, and Kalends is calendar. That's what it's derived from. So basically, it signaled a new year in ancient Rome. They had festive lights and greenery and gifts. A lot of gifts were being given to the emperor and the other authorities. But it's basically a lot of merrymaking, people wearing masks and animal skins, and like I mentioned, cross-dressing as they carried over into the Middle Ages. So yeah, they became attached to those midwinter festivals in the Middle Ages. And it was really hard for the church to eradicate this. It kept popping up. It wouldn't. So basically, so the Council of Tours, which is some Christian council at the time, in 567 AD, ordered January 1st to become the feast of the Circumcision.
Excuse me?
Yes. It's to commemorate Jesus' baptism and circumcision. Sorry. And
Whoa.
so let's put a damper on this party and call it the Feast of the Circumcision.
Yeah. I don't know how that holiday
And
made
then
the cut.
Yes. And they denounced cross-dressing and wearing animal skins and all the revelry and everything like that. So the Christians really tried their best to tamp that down. But the Middle Ages progressed, and the notion of merriment came back, and Christmas then basically lost its theological flavor. Again, I mean, you're making merry, you're doing all of these pagan things that were done by the Romans, and you're worshiping the baby Jesus. The Jesus is more human, he's flesh and blood. You've got Mary, which is represented, kind of like represents the women. And so it's so much more this worldly in the Middle Ages. So basically, New Year's Day was a time for gift giving up until the 19th century or the 1800s. And even with the night before Christmas poem, A Visit from St. Nicholas, the last line, Merry Christmas to all and to all good night, was changed to a Happy New Year to all, with Santa coming on New Year's Eve instead of Christmas Eve for a lot of people. And then that changed due to wonderful advertisements and entrepreneurs and businesses and schools for Santa. And all that changed, and here we are now. So I have updated you all. Consider yourselves filled with wonderful knowledge of Christmas.
Wonderful. Well, yeah, Jennifer says the church is no fun. Jennifer, you don't know the half of it. I mean, when we talk about the Middle Ages, when we talk about even the early Enlightenment, there was a time when you would be punished and even possibly imprisoned or put to death for owning a Bible written in English.
True.
Because only, obviously, the Latin was appropriate, as if the Bible was written in Latin. Mm-hmm. That would only make sense if the Romans wrote the Bible.
But yeah, those rascally, old Christians and their love of suffering.
And Mary Aline asks rhetorically, whose idea of merriment is circumcision? And all I can say to that is, not mine.
Talk about a marketing faux pas of Christianity there. Not so good.
Yes. Although in the comments it also says, yay, cross-dressing. Now, this was, cross-dressing like costume merriment.
Yeah. Like they did in Shakespeare. Shakespeare talked about this kind of thing.
That's right.
Yeah, the 12 Days of Christmas.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. I have to put that in, right?
I have dressed up as a man before for Halloween. I dressed up as Zeus.
Well,
And,
you were Santa Claus.
And I was Santa
This
Claus
year.
this year.
And we've got pictures of you with Mrs. Claus.
That's right.
And you're not the Mrs. So there you go.
So fun. What else you got there, Mr. Nasir?
So, again, I did not intend to go on very long today. I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. We did want to talk a little bit about reconciliation and deciding when to let people go and when to let people come back. And I'm kind of setting up future episodes. And the reason is there are topics that I've mentioned before are going to be difficult topics for us, and I would love to have anybody who has any ideas about these. So we're going to be talking about loyalty. We're going to be talking about honor. And we're going to be talking about tradition.
Okay.
And we're going to be talking about dedication. And the reason I think of that is because I have grown more dedicated to my family and my friends as I've gotten older. And I think I've always felt that that was important, that you stand by your people, that you honor your relationships, that you cut people slack until it's time to say goodbye. And then once you say goodbye, you simply say goodbye and let it go.
Yep.
Most of the wars that we enter are senseless, pointless, meaningless, and never needed to happen.
Yeah.
Most of the conflicts that we get into, there's just no reason for them when walking away is an option.
Yes.
And I think the holidays are as good a time as any to remember that we should be fiercely loyal to the people we value. I will be working on this one because it ain't simple.
No.
And especially in objectivist circles, concepts like loyalty and honor do not get the attention they deserve, at least in my reading. So look forward to that in 5 minutes with Robert Nasir. We'll talk more next week about what the podcast looks like for 2021,
Yes.
the directions I'd like to see us go. I want to amp up the fun at the same time as I want to be a little more disciplined and studious.
Okay.
And essentially make sure that those of you who are joining us are getting the maximum out of it.
Yes.
Especially because we want you. No, we want you to like the show. We want you to share the show. We want you to like and share. And we need to make it worth it for you to say to your friends, hey, you should listen to these guys, and know for sure that the episode that they're going to hear is going to be solid and not a lemon.
Yep.
So 2021 is looking good. We will talk about that next Sunday when we do our year-end wrap-up and New Year's show.
Yes.
But this week, what I want for each of you is a Merry Christmas, is the goodwill that goes with that,
Yes.
is the joy that the season should bring. And really, I want you to think about that. Think about joyousness and the fact that there's no reason to have less than maximum joy in your life. My Post-it note for the week says, I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. Well, you know, that's Ebenezer Scrooge, and I said pretty much the same thing about Thanksgiving. Christmas comes but once a year, as the song goes. And the reason we have a Christmas every year isn't because of tradition and history. The reason we need Christmas once a year is because joy and goodwill need a reboot every December. And so your homework is to think about that, to think about joy and benevolence. Think about how to keep that spirit throughout the year. I was talking to my daughter Diana, I mentioned this earlier, and one of the things that I mentioned is pumpkin pie. See, I'm suspicious. I like the idea. I like the idea of traditions. I like the idea of occasionally focusing on something you don't focus on all the time. But I'm a little suspicious of things people tell me they love, 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 but only for a given holiday. So I love pumpkin pie, but I will eat pumpkin pie in the summer, and I will eat pumpkin pie in the spring. And I'm not going to wait for Thanksgiving to have pumpkin pie. And that's my attitude about Christmas. I will eat Christmas, I will feel Christmas.
You shall have a Christmas feast.
And I'm going to do my
every
best
month.
to keep, because there's no reason why not. To have that joy, to have that benevolence, to have that sense of you're going to greet people in the street, you're going to smile a little longer at the cashier, you're going to treat your friends and family in the way that Christmas brings out. It brings out the best of you.
Can I wrap up with a couple of jokes?
Did we get some Christmas jokes? Because I was really disappointed.
I looked them up. Did
you find better ones than I found?
Maybe. I don't know. But
well,
this is...
if you've got any good ones.
Okay, what happened to the man who stole an advent calendar?
What happened to the man who stole an advent calendar?
He got 25 days.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. It looks like most of the ones you found are riddles. I found a lot of riddles, but not really jokes. I mean, I know riddles are kind of joke. Are there any other really good ones there?
Just puns, basically.
Okay.
So what do you get if you eat Christmas decorations?
What do you get if you eat Christmas decorations?
Tinselitis.
Tonsillitis. Okay. All right. Looks like you found a lot of the same ones I did.
What nationality is Santa Claus?
What nationality is Santa Claus?
North Polish.
North Polish.
See, it's all in the delivery. I'm sure everyone's cracking up.
They are funnier with you saying them than when I was reading them earlier.
All right, there you go.
Oh, well. So, thank you for joining us. We wish you a Merry Christmas. And I mean that from...
Oh, John Head is
wait,
on.
we have John Het on YouTube, my lead singer, the lead singer of my band.
Yes.
We haven't gigged since
band.
2016, but I still think it's my band. John is still my lead singer. And he says, why doesn't Santa Claus have any children? See, I've heard this one before, and for some reason the punchline is not coming to me. He didn't post the punchline. Of course, I think that one has a risque punchline. Oh, I know why. But, John, that would mean one child a year is possible. You do know the answer?
There's a serious answer.
Oh. Well, cover up your children's ears. But the answer is it's because Santa only comes once a year.
I think I see what the answer is.
At least,
I don't think you want to know, everybody.
Yeah.
Cover your ears.
Okay. So, thank you for that, John. There really was a dearth of good Christmas jokes, and maybe I'll use the next 12 months to... No, not really. But maybe I'll find a few good ones before we do this again in 2021. Christmas 2021, can you imagine? The hugs will be long, the handshakes will be firm. We're going to slobber all over each other. It's going to be great.
Yes.
But in the meantime, we'll slobber all over you virtually through the electronics here. Thank you so much for letting us... I was about to say something risque. Thank you so much. I'm not going to mention circumcision.
You just did.
I'm not going to mention coming in your ear. Thank you for letting us...
Or coming down the chimney.
Thank you for letting us join you for Christmas. Thank you for joining us. I can't believe we went off the rails in the last 30 seconds here. So, with that said, as always, the show recap will appear. Show notes will be updated within 10 minutes after the show. Notice I didn't say within 5 to 10 minutes. We decided last time that expression doesn't make any sense. Show notes will be updated within 10 minutes after the program and posted online. Links to everything that we mentioned, all that information about Elvis Presley, all that great Ayn Rand and Leonard Peikoff related Christmas stuff, and everything else will be in the show notes. Follow those links. Have a good time. That's our Christmas present to you. You can find past episodes of the show at youtube.com/Robert Nasir. I especially recommend the Goodwill episode from 4 weeks ago. It's a perfect episode for this Christmas time, and I had a great time doing it. I'm sure Amy did too. If you want to support the show financially, and you know who you are who already do, thank you so much. Patreon.com/Robert Nasir. You guys are the best. And
Yes,
our
you are.
Christmas is a little bit brighter.
Yes.
Because we have one or two luxuries that wouldn't have been possible without you. If you have any questions, or especially if you have any suggestions for future shows and the direction you'd like to see the show go in 2021, post it on my wall or in our Facebook group, 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir.
Or you can give us a lot of money at Patreon or PayPal, and then you can force us to do whatever you want us to do.
Now that's an idea. You know, Yaron Brook does that. If you
Oh,
give
does
him
he?
enough money, it's actually, if you give him $1,000, he will do an entire episode on whatever you want him to do it on. Unless he finds it morally repugnant, he's got a proviso there, but as long as it's reasonable. So I'll tell you, actually, I think we announced this once before, didn't we? Because I remember we said, we'll do it for half the price.
That's right.
And there's two of us, so it's twice the show.
It is.
For half the price. That's like 400% more.
Yeah, it is.
So if you want to give us $500, message me for the PayPal address. We will do a show based on any topic you want that we don't find morally repugnant. And given the humor in this episode, there ain't a whole lot that we don't find morally repugnant. Send it our way. But seriously, thank you for joining us. This was a bit of a light episode because it's a light time of the year. We will get into it hard and heavy again next week when we talk about the year end, talk about the year coming up, talk about New Year's. We're going to talk about New Year's resolutions and what we think of that whole tradition. But until then, and as always, we wish you success. We wish you happiness. We wish you a Merry Christmas.
And a Happy New Year.
And a Happy New Year. Oh my gosh. And as always, and maybe more than anything else this time of year, we wish you love.